As a coach, one of your primary objectives is to positively develop the character and leadership of others. And for Coach Jim Johnson, one decision he made in 2006 has forever changed the trajectory of his life. In February of that year, Coach Johnson made the call to take his autistic team manager off the end of the bench and put him into the game. A decision which made Coach Johnson a household name and an instant authority on leadership. Since that point, and for the last 30 years, Coach Johnson has taken his knowledge he's learned on the court and transformed it into a powerful message of inclusion, acceptance, and diversity, which he shares with business leaders, executives, and coaches alike. He took some time out this week to join me to share the inspirational story and how we can all be successful leaders. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Excited to be with you today, Coach, to talk about your time as basketball coach and in leadership. Great to be with you this afternoon, and thank you so very much for being here.
Well, thanks, Kevin. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And now, Coach, I don't need to tell you that a decision that you made in 2006 sort of changed the trajectory of your life and your legacy as a basketball coach. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about the decision and how it's impacted your life.
Yeah, so for sure. I was a long-term high school basketball coach in my and for most of my career, I was in my hometown, which is called Greece, New York, which is a suburb of Rochester. And I was having a fairly successful career. We were winning a lot of games, but unfortunately, we were falling a little short in the postseason. And in 2003, I had a young man come into our program. His name was Jason McElwain. The world calls him J-Mac, a name that I tagged him because I was having a hard time pronouncing his last name. So he tried out for our JV team in 2003, 2004, and he's on the autism spectrum. He's also learning disabled. But my JV coach came to me and he said, Coach, this young man is not a very good basketball player, but man, he's got a big heart. He loves basketball. He loves the kids on the team. I think we should keep him. So he ended up keeping him as our team manager. And Jason, I didn't get to know him too well his sophomore year because he was the JV and I'm the varsity coach. But he would sit on the bench during the varsity games, and he was really into our team, both JV and varsity. And so after his sophomore season, I started to get to know him better because he started to come to all our off season. I was picking him up from his house once in a while, and we just started developing a special bond. So to cut to the 2006, he tried out for our team for 2 more years, and both years he did not make it, but he was offered the team manager's job. But his senior year in 2005, 2006 season, told him that because he was so loyal and committed to our program, I wanted to give him a gift. And the gift was that I wanted to give him an opportunity to suit up for our senior night, which is our final home game, which is in February 15th that year of 2006. So he was excited. And ironically, we had a difficult season. We had, unfortunately, a lot of strife that season. And Jason was kind of our glue. He kind of held us together through some thick and thin times. And so we got to February 15th. And I gave him his uniform on the 13th. In fact, there was a rumor that he slept in it for 2 straight nights. He was pretty excited. And then that day came. And for me, senior night, because I was a head coach for 30 years, so I had 30 different senior nights, is a night when we honor our seniors before the game and we bring out their parents or guardians. And it's a very special night. But this night was profoundly special to see Jason, instead of in his white shirt and black tie that he always brought or wore to the games, he actually was in a uniform number 52, which was way too big, but he didn't care. Well, the game starts, and we had a good student body following at the game, and they started chanting, "We want JMac, we want JMac." I guess just in case I forgot. Well, I really wanted to get him in the game, but I knew that it was important that we got everybody in before I could put Jason in, because he wasn't normally playing during games. Well, with just over 4 minutes to go in the game, I thought the time is right. And what my dream was, I wanted to get Jason with enough time so he could score a basket. I thought if he could score a basket, that's a memory he'll cherish for the rest of his life. Well, he gets in the game, the place goes erupts. And what was actually kind of neat is Jason and I didn't know this, but one of our parents had made these pictures of Jason's face and put them on paint sticks. And when Jason came in the game, our students showed those. And I'm usually a pretty macho guy, and I got so overwhelmed with emotion, I actually sat down and started crying because I couldn't believe how they greeted him. So the game begins, and Jason, the first time we get the ball, he shoots a 3-pointer from the right corner. The possession, he misses another shot, but this time he hits the rim. So I'm thinking we're getting closer. In the third possession, he shoots a 3-pointer, and this time magic, it goes in. The place explodes, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, God must be a basketball fan. Not only has Jason scored, he's got a 3-pointer. It can't get any better than this, right? Well, for the next 3 minutes, Jason's boyhood idol was the late, great Kobe Bryant. In fact, I'm going to fast forward and come back and finish the story. 4 months later, in the summer, Jason is up for the ESPY Award for the greatest sports moment of the year. And one of the 4 finalists is his idol, Kobe Bryant. Kobe had scored 81 points in an NBA game that year. And actually, Jason beat him out for the ESPY and got a chance to meet his idol. But going back to the game, with about 3 minutes to go, he had made his first 3, and then he just starts making shot after shot. And the place is going crazier and crazier. And the 2 things I'll never forget, with about a minute to go, I'm still sitting on the bench, tears still flowing down my face. And I get a tap on my shoulder, and it's J-Mac's mother. And she's bawling her eyes out, and she embraces me, and she whispers in my ear, "Coach, this is the best gift you could ever give my son." Well, it keeps going. He keeps making these shots. And then our opponent, Spencerport, I want to give kudos to their team. They were great sports, and their coach was as well. With about 10 seconds to go, they score. And our player that takes out of bounds normally throws to our point guard, but this time he throws it to J-Mac, and he's dribbling down. And I thought they were just going to let him go, and he'd go in and make a short shot thing. Oh no, he pulls up like almost an NBA 3. I'm thinking, Jason, don't shoot from there. That's way too far. He launches a rainbow. Swish. I look over, and the next thing I know, I thought I was living the movie Rudy, because all our fans ran on the floor, all our players ran on the floor, and then Jason's mother is kind of bobbing through the crowd, and she gives him a big hug, and then our players put him up on his shoulders with a game ball. And at this point, I had no idea how many points he has, and the public address announcer comes on and says, "The leading scorer for the Trojans," our team nickname, is J-Mac with 20 points. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, if he'd have played the whole game, he'd have scored 160 points, because he scored 20 points in less than 4 minutes. So it was truly the most remarkable moment I've ever had in coaching. And the ironic thing, at that point, we had never won what we call our Section 5 championship, which is a pretty big deal in our area. And 3 weeks later, in front of a sold-out arena of about 10,000 people, we actually won our first Section 5 championship. So it was kind of the cherry on top.
Well, Coach, that's quite the story, and quite the story of perseverance, isn't it?
Yeah, sure is. Sure is. Jason's a great example of that.
Absolutely, Coach. And I don't know how much you know about me, but I was also born with spastic quadriplegia cerebral palsy, and I have also known that wheelchair basketball is it sort of exploded in popularity. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on the impact of wheelchair basketball and the impact it's had on the game and its popularity.
Well, I'm really encouraged to see the opportunity for more people to play the great game of basketball. So I have seen some wheelchair basketball. First of all, I'm amazed at what people can do in wheelchairs. I mean, it's just fascinating to me that they can play at the level they do at such an outstanding level. But I just think it's wonderful. The more opportunity that we can give people to play sports, and in my case, the game that I loved and coached for over 3 decades, basketball. So I'm all for it, and I'm glad that you're involved with wheelchair basketball.
Yeah, it's important to stay active, isn't it?
It sure is, sure is.
And Coach, I know that you have 7 principles of leadership, and you go all around the country talking about effective leadership. So I'm going to ask you, in your mind, what makes an effective leader, whether it be in business and sports? And I'm wondering if you can go over those 7 principles for me.
Sure. So as I developed as a coach, leadership became very important because I realized if I was going to lead teams, I first of all had to be a better leader myself and then be able to lead others. So I developed these principles through my journey of learning and reading and talking to different people. So I'll go through them. The first one is clarifying your vision, which is the Bible says people will perish without vision. So I think number one is a leader, you have to be clear on giving people where you want to try to take. In my case, it was a basketball program. And I think the two things are really important is you got to have clarity about who you are as a leader. So I think you got to develop your own personal mission statement, which is something I work with people with. And number two is you got to have a group mission, a team mission. Give you an example of our group mission was we wanted to develop winners on and off the court. And we wanted to be clear about what that was on a consistent basis. It was my job to share with them what it takes to be a winner on and off the court on a daily basis. The second principle is something that I think all leaders are understand is really important, and that is building trust. And where I think leaders sometimes have a breakdown there is they don't have clarity of how they're going to build trust and how important it is. So we have a little formula that we did with 3 keys, and that was is number one is that we were going to say what we do and do what we say, that we were going to be consistent with our message. Number two is that we were going to focus on telling the truth to each other, and the truth will set us free. And number three is that we were going to catch people doing right more than we were going to catch people doing wrong. Because I took over 3 programs that have been losing, and with our staff, those are the principles we really try to focus on in building trust. The third key is what I call creating an edge. And that comes down to, as a coach, I think you got to keep going so you can grow your team and find different ways to create an edge. I'll give you a couple examples. Like we really got in and taught our guys how to be good goal setters and the power of writing things down. And another area is we also did imagery before all games, which is something that I think was a little bit different, compared to a lot of teams that we played. So we were really trying to teach them the mind part of the game as well. So those are a couple ideas that we did in trying to create an edge, and there's certainly many more. The fourth key is effective communication and the clarity. But the most important thing is with the communication, as the leader, you got to be an outstanding leader. And you got to do that by being a great listener. And I think that's where sometimes we forget as leaders is if you're going to build a bond through the trust, then you got to be a great listener. Number 5 is a simple one, but sometimes we forget, and we see leaders botch this one up all the time, and that is to lead by example. We always told our players, you are always on stage, always watching. And certainly, as we started to have a lot of success in our program, my stage got magnified. So it was important that I always led by example. Number 6 is what I call leaving a profit, which is our philosophy. And the concept was simply that we were going to try to make everything we touch get better, not worse. And I'll give you a short illustration. When we would go to our opponent's school to play a game, when we would walk in the locker room, if I saw a piece of trash on the locker room floor, what do you think I did? I picked it up because I was trying to lead by example, and I wanted to always share with them that every place we went, we wanted to make it better, not worse. And then the last one, in summing it all up, is that I think outstanding leaders are servant leaders. And what that simply means is that they turn the pyramid. The leader is not on top. They are on the bottom trying to serve their people. And I think that's a really powerful concept that has gotten bigger and bigger and more important as we move through leadership and building teams.
Yeah, Coach, I live my life through the prism that inclusion is the gateway to independence. And the only way to be an effective leader is to build avenues of prosperity for other people to follow. So I can relate to you in that regard for sure.
Mhm.
And Coach, I know that you've taken these principles and your philosophy into coaching on the motivational speaking circuit. So I'm also curious to ask you about connecting with people and sort of meeting them where they are as a speaker. And how much do you use your background as a basketball coach to connect with people in business and other professions as well?
Well, certainly my background is in, athletic coaching, more specifically in basketball, although I did coach other sports. So certainly I relate my stories, but through talking to a lot of different groups and businesses and schools and organizations, is I realize a lot of the same principles and leadership are the same whether you lead a basketball team or you lead a multi-million dollar business or you lead some type of service organization. Those principles, the foundation, the fundamentals, are a lot of those are the same. And so what you try to do is relate where I come from, my background, where I try to inspire people with stories and examples like the JMac story, and also give them some concrete ideas that they can implement to help them become better leaders and help their teams become better.
And Coach, tell me, I'm curious to ask you, what do you think is your proudest moment as as a coach, and how important do you think it is for coaches to develop future leaders of tomorrow?
But I think it's essential. I think, the more that I learned about leadership, the more that I realized that one of my major jobs was to develop my players as leaders. And so, certainly, to answer your question, the proudest moment, I hate to be redundant, but there's no better moment ever than JMAC's senior night game. That was just something that the greatest lesson I learned at that point. We had never won a Section 5 championship, and yet people would ask Jason after his senior season, what was the best thing about his senior season? And ironically, he wouldn't say his game. He'd say it was winning the Section 5 championship. And when I was asked that question, I was just the opposite. I said the greatest thing about that season was Jason's game. Although the Section 5 championship was nice, that was to me kind of the cherry on top. The other thing that was really powerful, you talk about developing leaders, is after Jason's senior year, he graduated and he didn't go to college. He went right to work at a local grocery store, and he would come to some games, but he wasn't really involved with the program like he had been for 3 years. After 2 years being away, he actually came back and wanted to volunteer, and he actually volunteered with me for my last 9 years. And ironically, we won 4 more Section 5 championships. So I kid people for a small fee. I will rent him out to you because he's a good luck charm. But I think that was really neat to see him develop his leadership skills now in a different role as a volunteer coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And Coach, you had mentioned that you had taken over 3 losing programs and turned them into winners in a short period of time. So well, what are your thoughts on what it takes to turn around a losing culture?
Well, I think you certainly got to have a plan. And, as the first time it took us longer to turn it around, and then the last 2, we did a little bit quicker. But the main thing that I learned, especially when I took over where Jason was, the school was called Greece Athena, is that one of the things that I did right away is I went and met with every player that was interested in playing with an individual meeting, and just trying to get to know them. Because I think if you're going to build a culture, you have to start by building relationships. So that was the first thing, is And then as we build the culture, it's important. We always talked about trying to build that family type atmosphere. Well, one of the things that I got an idea that I did for many years in my coaching is every basketball player. And when I coached, we had a varsity team, we had a junior varsity, and a ninth grade team at the high school. And then we also had two middle school teams. And every player in my program, which was over 50 kids, would receive a birthday card from me. And that meant a lot to them, that I recognized that their birthday and is important enough to me that I put it in my calendar. So I think it's just those things, that consistently finding ways to make connections and build relationships is so powerful. And then the last thing is the concept that we talked all about, and that is we over me. That we have to do, if we're going to be successful as a team, we have to sacrifice our individual goals for the best of the team. And that takes a process, but as you start to have success from a team, you start to get a lot of buy-in. But that's why it is important to build those relationships every day.
Yeah, Coach, I always say that life is a constant game of networking and a connection, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely.
And Coach, you also said that overcoming adversity requires all of us to have inspiration and skill during challenging times. So I'm wondering if you can dive into that for me this afternoon.
Sure. So I think it's really important, number one, that what you feed your mind consistently can really help you or hinder you. So right now, I mean, the whole world is going through this COVID. That's very difficult. Now, I want to stay educated with it, but at the same time, I got to be very alert that I'm not consistently feeding my mind just watching news, negative news. No, so I really don't watch a lot of news. I mean, I will read a little bit about it. My wife informs me. And, I know it's there, I know it's real, but at the same time, I think it's really careful that you are understand what you're putting in your mind consistently is either going to help you or hinder you. Secondly, as a leader, it's really important that you consistently find ways to inspire others. And what I would really try to always search for is examples or stories that our players could relate to and would help them, inspire them to think bigger and to think how important it is to work together as a team. And the more that you can give them stories and illustrations to point out the things you think that are great, and these are the things we should focus on, and also focus or share some ideas on mistakes that teams or individuals have done and how we need to stay away from those mistakes if we're going to have a successful team. So I think it's really important as a coach or a leader that you're really finding ways to inspire. Like, give you a couple quick examples. Like every day when we had practice, we always started with a quote of the day, and we always had a theme every week. Like a theme might be on improvement, or the theme might be on teamwork or attitude. And then we would focus on, what does it take to have a great attitude day in and day out, to have a successful person that builds a successful team. So, finding those examples, those stories are really a powerful way to help inspire. But remember, as a leader, if you're consistently feeding your mind with negative things, then it's hard to be a positive person. So always be aware of what you're allowing in your mind on a consistent basis.
Yeah, life is. I always say that life happens to all of us, and it's important to determine which direction we want to go with it, right?
Absolutely, for sure.
And Coach, I know that you also spent some time talking to people about developing leaders that people want to follow. So I'm wondering if you can go into that for me.
Sure. So I think it's so important uh, to be a leader that people will follow. Number one is the old adage, it is so true, that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care about them. So I think that's something that you got to, as I've mentioned earlier, that you got to really focus on building relationships. The second thing is, I think it's very important that you have clarity about what the team goals. Like one of the things we did every year after our team was chosen is I would bring them over to my house for lunch, And then we would sit down and we would talk about the team mission. We would talk about our purpose. And then we would set some specific goals, like a record, and how we wanted to do a community service project for our community, and different things that we wanted to accomplish as a team. And then we would put them in writing, and everyone had clarity. And then sometimes when we would have some slippage, we would come back and say, hey, remember we had that meeting, here are our team goals. Are we on the same page in trying to accomplish these together? So you try to help them get refocused when there's slippage, because the one thing we know about life is it's not a straight line. You got your ups, your downs, your sideways. And as a leader, it's really important that you understand that there's going to be bumpy parts of the road in the journey together, and that you can overcome that adversity because you stay together, you stay positive, and you build those relationships. So going back to one of my keys there is that they trust you, that, when things don't go right, that they still trust that what you're doing is for the best interest of them and the team.
Yeah, and Coach, building on that point, you say that trust is like a bank account, and when you make deposits, it grows, and when you don't or make withdrawals, it doesn't grow. So I'm wondering if you can go into the mantra that trust is a bank account.
Yeah. So in that concept is that, that, leaders look at different things, like as I got better, I'd say that I became more trusting quicker. But one of the things I would always share with our players is that you do have to earn trust. I want to earn your trust. You need to earn my trust. And you do that by how you either put deposits or withdrawals. And I would share with them, like, for example, if you come in and you work hard and you're a good teammate with a positive attitude, those are deposits, where I could start to really feel that I trust you. If you're someone that, comes late to practice or has this negative attitude, those are withdrawals. But the other thing that I always would talk to them about is it's really important that this adage, I think, is very true. It takes time to build trust, but you can destroy it with one really bad decision. And I'll give you an example. Like, one of the things I did my last 20 something years of coaching is I wanted to be a better role model. So I got in front of my entire team and all their parents after the teams were chosen, and I would tell them that I don't have to do this, but because I want to be a great role model, I'm going to not drink alcohol during the season. Now, I was old enough to drink alcohol, so I could do that. But I said, because I don't want my players, even though they were not old enough to drink alcohol, that I want to be the example. Now, let me share an illustration. How about if I share that to all my team and my parents, and then 2 weeks later, I go out and I get a DWI? What do you think that would have done to the trust account? It would have smashed it. I probably would have never gotten it back with that team. So I think it's really important that, fortunately, I never made that poor choice, but we see it all the time. Urban Meyer, the coach down in Jacksonville, where he didn't ride back with his team, and then he was out drinking and dancing with another lady that wasn't his wife. Those are the things that can really hurt your team because you're not being the example for them. So I think it's really important that you're cognizant that your example, you're always on stage, and that you got to do that consistently. Your words and your actions got to match. And if they don't, you're going to run into trouble in building that trust.
Yeah, absolutely, Coach. And I'm also fascinated to ask you about how we establish more diversification diversification in coaching ranks and give more young coaches and coaches of other minority groups a chance to ascend. Coach, I'm curious.
Well, I think it's important. I mean, the world is diverse. So I think there's two parts that I'll share with you. Number one is I believe we all should have an opportunity to have a chance. Okay. I think that's a human right and respect for all. I do say this, though, that I think it doesn't matter what the color of your skin, how tall you are, how much you weigh, those types of things. But I do believe that you have to have the ability to be a leader. Now, I think we all can be leaders, but at the same time, if you have not putting in the time to, let's just use basketball coaching as an example. Like to me, there's two things. I need competence and I need character. Okay, so the confidence is, I've got to really know the game of basketball. I got to know how to lead people. Those are important that I got to do daily basis. I also got to have the character, because if I'm someone that says one thing and does another, that's going to really divide your organization as well. So using the character and competence is, you need both to be successful. So I don't care, if you're white, black, green, yellow, that kind of thing. Is I want people all have the opportunity, but also I want everybody to understand that you got to deserve that opportunity by developing the competence and the character to be in that leadership position.
Yeah, absolutely. Coach, my final question for you today is I'm curious to know what do moments of impact mean for you, and how do you want your personal and professional legacy to be defined?
Well, that comes back to my mission statement, which took me a while to develop, which is to be an outstanding role model that makes a positive difference in the world by helping others make their dreams come true. So, what I really tried to focus on through my coaching, and now that I'm retired with my speaking, is how can I make even a little impact every day to try to help and serve people. So, an example, like I do a media or a social media post in the morning, and it's just a little success thought, that I try to do, and they're all different types of things. I also, because I love leadership, I do some type of leadership post every afternoon, trying to give back with, and just trying to serve others, and then find ways, whether it's adopt a cause or develop ways that you can serve and help others. So I think is really important. And you know what? It doesn't have to be that you have to raise $10 million to help some cause. It could be just helping put a smile on somebody's face. So, start with something small, like, instead of, walking by somebody and ignore them, smiling at them and say good morning to them. And that's where it starts, just the small little acts of respect and caring for others, and then certainly it can be magnified with bigger things than that. But I think it starts with just little small daily habits. How can you contribute and help others?
Yeah, giving people intrinsic value they can verify is important, isn't it, Coach?
There is, without a doubt, Kevin.
Hey, Coach, tell me finally, if people want to get connected with you, what's the best way they can do that?
Yeah, so my website is coachjimjohnson.com. That way I wouldn't forget it. And on that, we do have a monthly newsletter for free that people can sign up. We also have a weekly blog that we do every week that people can get as well. I do have a book on there. I'm working on a second book, but my first book was called The Coach and a Miracle. It's a story about JMac, and it's actually has my 6 principles of one of my other keynotes about calling dreams really do come true. And I'm really proud of that book. And if you do purchase on discount right now on our website, I sign it, and I also put a free bookmark in it as well. So those are some of the things. And if anybody can ever would like to reach out, all the information, whether email or phone, to get a hold of me, if I can ever help you with either a virtual in-person presentation, I'm here to serve.
Fantastic, Coach. Well, I have to tell you, I always like helping people maximize their fullest potential. So I really enjoyed our time together talking about leadership and diversity and inclusion. Your time and efforts on my behalf are most appreciated, Coach, and I want to thank you for being here this afternoon.
My pleasure, Kevin. I'm hoping that we continue to grow our relationship and hopefully someday even get a chance to meet in person. That would be wonderful.